DC here. Hi guys and gals. Well, hope you're all well. Today's Saturday. I've been back from Ireland since yesterday and done a lot of things actually already. Got my hair cut a little bit, mowed the lawn, and getting other things ready. But I was tagged in a way, or at least asked a question by Dave Nicholson to look into a video. It was on Will Music Make You Smarter? It was made by someone which I'm not sub to, but she's a very interesting person. I guess she's in Australia. And it was, let me see, I'll just turn this around for a second. Okay, so that was Dave Nicholson stuff. And Will Music Make You Smarter was from her, Louise Martin. And she was talking, is the start of Science Week. I didn't know about that actually. And so she made a little thing. Her video basically has to do with the fact is that she was looking at background music. Now I'd have to say I don't think her scientific method was really exact, but anyway the presupposition was like she looked at different music genres and then tried to memorize things, so like cognition. And the thing was, I guess I would say that the experimental detail probably wasn't, the setup probably wasn't ideal, but the idea was really good. Like she looked at different type of musics, be it rock, country, no she didn't use country, jazz and classical and so on, and memorization. Now Dave basically asked me if there was any scientific research on this. I mean, my first thought was, if anything is a music that will distract you from learning, or doesn't have anything, or will actually lower your stress levels, it'll probably be good. If anything actually takes something away from your learning possibilities, it'll probably be bad. And that will probably change for every person in a way, depending on your preferences and maybe even your possibilities of multitasking. Because multitasking is something that actually people, wonder about. When I was a kid, I mean, I would have music in the background, I'd watch the television, I'd do my homework, and I thought I was multitasking. But I think actually in that respect, it was just because it was things that I was, at ease with. I don't know if it was very difficult tasks, if that will work. Now, to get back to the articles, or what I've looked up. Now let me see. I'm going to go over to the PowerPoint. To the Adobes. So I found different articles that are interesting. One is the effect of background music on cognitive performance in musicians and non-musicians, and the other one is, go here. The influence of background music on learning in light of different theoretical perspectives of the role of working memory capacity. Now, for the musician thing, that was, in a way, it was interesting because one says, and study in brain chemistry and so on, seems to show that if you compare musicians with non-musicians, musicians have created new neural pathways for learning their music and so on. And what comes out with that, if I go all the way to the conclusions, because I won't want to make this video too long either. Here we are. Should find those conclusions. Okay. The fact is that musicians and non-musicians do differ. If a musician, of course I won't find it while I'm online, will I? Is that called multitasking problems? Okay. In summary, the performance of musicians was negatively affected by the presence of background music compared to silence when performing a language comprehension task involving grammatical judgment. Their performance was not, however, affected when solving a visual spatial search task. In contrast, the performance of non-musicians was not affected by background music on either task. These results suggest that musicians have difficulty simultaneously processing music, particularly incorrect music, and grammar. And we argue that this is due to competition in musicians between the systems that process language and music. The results presented here support the hypothesis that musicians process language and music using the same or at least overlapping networks, and are consistent with the view that music and language are not functionally independent, at least among musicians. Now, that's interesting in a way, but the thing is that there are different things that one probably would have to take into account into this. Is that the main, I was going to say, focus of this test was actually seeing if real musicians process differently because they've created different neural networks. Now, and they seem to have found that, there are effectively differences, but that's because or close professional musicians, I was going to say, are a class of people on their own. But now if we look at, other people like ourselves, the influence of background music on learning in light of theoretical perspective and working memory. Now, I just will try and... They tested 81 college students using a between-subject design in which half of the sample listening it was pop songs to 2 pop songs while learning a visual text, and the other half learning in silence. We included working memory capacity in the design as a continuous organism variable. Arousal and mood scores before and after learning were collected as potential mediating variables. So what they've done from that is that they could not find a mediation effect between background music and arousal or moods on learning outcomes. In addition, for recall performances, there were no effects on background music or working memory capacity, nor an interaction effect on these factors. However, when considering comprehension, we did find an interaction between background music and working memory capacity. The higher the learner's working memory capacity, the better they learn with background music. This is in line with seductive detail assumption. Now, okay, let's not get into all the details, but basically, it does say that the background music for certain people does make a difference, but it does have to do with what they call the working memory capacity. And the working memory capacity is learning situations due to the fact that, let me see where they have that. It's trying to get an easy way. Working memory capacity can be defined as a number of separate concepts that can be dealt with at the same time. What have we been talking about earlier a little bit, is like multitasking. And so basically, people that have listening to background music reduces the available memory capacity for the learning process. How then do background music and working memory work together? So they've looked at that a little bit in this article, but basically it does come down to multitasking. And if you have, I would say, a low level of what we could say multitasking, if you're listening to music and you have to concentrate somehow on the music, if it doesn't, just go into the background, it'll be taking away part of your cognitive possibilities. So in that respect, again, everybody is different. And I do think that, this is my own opinion actually, is that if it's a music that, as we'd say, muzak, which basically doesn't take, isn't part of your total enjoyment, it probably will have little effect. If it's a music that you really enjoy, you'll get into it. And if you get into it, I think it will actually disturb. This is probably a little bit contrary to what the video was saying. I guess she put rock music and she liked it. But I'm wondering, maybe because she liked it or something that she knew. If it's something it goes in the background, really in the background. If it's something that has to come to the foreground, you'll be taking away some of your cognition and some of your, basically some of the things that you need to learn. So Dave, I mean, it's not so simple, but the question was actually, I mean, if there's, he asked me if there's been studies on this. Yes, no. Well, the answer is yes, but it's actually quite interesting because I found while just looking very quickly, I didn't make very extensive research on this, but I mean, when you look into it, there are different types of things. I mean, if you look into musicians, real musicians over the years have created probably their own type of neural networks, and they are a class on their own. If you look to, I mean, the normal population, if we can call it normal, like ourselves, which like music, like particular music, and probably actually which music that we like does make a difference. But it's more complicated than that. Once again, it really has to do with, with your personal working memory. And every one of us is slightly different in that respect. Yeah, so that's going to be it. DC signing off. I think that that was an interesting thing to look into. I would certainly look into it more if I had more time, but actually I won't take more time for that. I've got other things to do, but really that was a nice tag in a way, if I can call it a tag, to look into that. Anybody out there, please tell me, give me your opinions. I really like this. And it was actually a very, very good, I'm coming back on what I was saying about the experimental design, because after looking at the paper, the lady who made the video, which I've forgotten her name now, you see how good I am with this stuff, working memory? Louise Martin. So Louise Martin actually put many, many more genres. So maybe actually she made it too complicated, but she said herself actually where she saw some weaknesses in her working design, actually the experimental design. Her hypothesis is good, no doubt about that. Okay, I guess I would say at the DC signing off. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dave Nicholson. Thank you, Louise Martin, for that video. That was really, really good. And have a nice Saturday. Bye-bye. Take care.